I jolted awake at 3 a.m., my hand instinctively reaching for the other side of the bed. Cold sheets. Empty. My heart did a weird little flip, like it knew something I didn't. I'm Ezra, 34. A guy who's spent the last decade grinding away at a job I don't love, married to Margot, the woman I thought I'd grow old with. Never in a million years did I think a random Tuesday night in Asheville, North Carolina, would kick off the unraveling of my entire life. The room was dead quiet, save for the faint howl of the January wind rattling the windows. Margot wasn't home. I grabbed my phone, squinting at the screen through bleary eyes. One new message from her. Out with friends. Don't wait up. My stomach twisted. This was the third time this week she'd pulled this stunt, slipping out into the night with some vague excuse. I mean, who goes out at midnight in the middle of a freezing mountain winter? I tried to shake it off, tell myself I was overreacting, but the unease clung to me like damp fog. I couldn't just sit there. My bare feet hit the icy hardwood as I shuffled to the living room, peering out the window. Her car was gone. No headlights, no sign of life, just the skeletal trees swaying in the dark. That's when the itch started, the kind that crawls under your skin and won't let go. I knew it was wrong, but I had to check. Her phone was still on the kitchen counter. She'd forgotten it in her rush to leave. My hands trembled as I picked it up, the screen lighting up with a passcode I'd guessed months ago. Her birthday. Guilt gnawed at me, but curiosity won. I opened her messages. Most were mundane grocery lists, a chat with her sister Talia, some work stuff. Then I saw it. A thread labeled V. My chest tightened. I knew that initial. Vance, my boss. The guy who'd slap my back at work and call me the backbone of the team. While his smirk said something else entirely. I tapped the thread and the first message hit me like a punch to the gut. Tonight was amazing, babe. Can't wait. I froze staring at those words. Babe. Margot wasn't the type to throw around pet names with just anyone. My thumb hovered over the screen, my mind racing. I scrolled up, more messages, all from earlier that evening. Missed you at the office today. Meet me at 10? And then the kicker. He's clueless. See you soon. My breath caught in my throat. The room spun for a second, the air suddenly too thick to breathe. Vance. Margot. Together. Tonight. I dropped the phone like it burned me, my hands shaking so bad I could barely stand. I stumbled to the couch and sank into it, the cushion swallowing me whole. My wife was sneaking around with my boss? It didn't compute. Margot, with her sharp wit and that smile that could light up a room, cheating on me? With him. Vance was 42, slick and smug, the kind of guy who'd charm you while picking your pocket. I'd always hated how he loomed over me at work, but this was a whole new level of betrayal. I replayed every moment of the last few months in my head, searching for clues. The late nights she'd blamed on girls' time. The way she'd started dressing up more, even for quick errands. That time Vance dropped by our house unannounced, claiming it was work-related. And how Margot had laughed a little too loud at his dumb jokes. It had all seemed innocent then. Now it felt like a neon sign I'd been too blind to see. The wind howled louder outside, mirroring the storm brewing in my chest. I wanted to scream, to smash something, but all I could do was sit there, numb. My fingers itched to call her, to demand answers, but what would I even say? Hey honey, cut you sexting my boss, care to explain? No. I needed proof. Hard, undeniable proof. Because right now my brain was scrambling for any excuse to make this not real. Maybe V was someone else. Maybe I'd misread it. Maybe I was losing my damn mind. I grabbed a glass of water, chugging it down to steady myself, but it didn't help. The cold liquid just sat heavy in my gut, like the truth I couldn't swallow. I glanced at the clock, 3:17 a.m. She could walk through that door any minute, all smiles and lies, and I'd have to look her in the eye knowing what I knew. Or thought I knew. My head throbbed, a dull ache spreading behind my eyes. I rubbed my temples, trying to piece it together. Vance lived out in the sticks, a fancy cabin 20 minutes from town. If she was with him, she wouldn't be back for a while. Plenty of time to stew in this hell. I paced the living room, the floor creaking under my weight. Every shadow felt like it was watching me, judging me for being so naive. I trusted her, built a life with her. And now what? Was I just some pawn in their game? The thought made my blood boil, but underneath it, there was something worse, hurt. Raw, jagged hurt that clawed at my insides. I loved her. God help me, I still did. The phone buzzed on the counter, snapping me out of my spiral. I lunged for it, heart pounding. Another message from V. Drive safe, gorgeous. Can't wait for next time. Next time. The words seared into my brain, each one a fresh stab. I gripped the counter, my knuckles white, fighting the urge to hurl the phone through the window. Instead, I set it down, careful not to crack the screen. I needed it intact. Evidence. That's what this was now, a case to build. I sank back onto the couch, the silence pressing in around me. The mountains outside loomed dark and unforgiving, like they were in on the secret too. I couldn't shake the feeling in my gut, that primal instinct screaming that this was real, that my marriage, my job, my whole damn world was teetering on the edge of a cliff. And the worst part? I didn't know if I was strong enough to climb back up, or if I even wanted to. But one thing was clear. I couldn't just sit here and take it. I had to know the truth no matter how bad it got. Because if my gut was right, and it's never steered me wrong before, this was only the beginning. After that night, sleep became a distant memory. The buzz of Margot's phone and those damning messages from Vance haunted me, looping in my head like a broken record I couldn't smash. I decided one thing in the dark hours before dawn. I wasn't going to sit around waiting for answers to fall into my lap. If my gut was screaming the truth, I had to see it for myself. So the next evening, when Margot breezed out the door with a flimsy, "I'm grabbing coffee with a friend" excuse, I didn't argue. I just watched her go, then grabbed my keys. The air outside bit at my face, sharp and unforgiving, as I slid into my truck. Asheville's streets were quiet, the kind of stillness that makes every sound feel like a gunshot. Margot's taillights disappeared around a bend, and I followed, keeping my distance. My hands gripped the wheel so tight I could feel my pulse in my fingertips. She wasn't heading downtown where the cafes clustered. No. Her car veered toward the winding roads leading out of town, toward the sprawling cabins nestled in the foothills. My stomach sank. I knew exactly where this path led. Vance's place. I'd been to his cabin once, a year ago, for some awkward team-building barbecue. It was all polished wood and smug luxury, the kind of spot that screamed, "I'm better than you," without saying a word. Now, as I trailed Margot's sedan up the gravel drive, the headlights cutting through the skeletal trees, I felt like I was driving straight into a nightmare. She pulled up to his porch and I parked 100 yards back, tucked behind a thicket of pines. My breath fogged the windshield as I killed the engine, every nerve on edge. Through the gloom I saw her step out, her coat pulled tight against the wind. She didn't hesitate, just marched up the steps like she owned the place. The door swung open before she even knocked, and there he was, Vance, all broad shoulders and that slimy grin I'd grown to despise. They didn't waste time with pleasantries. He pulled her into a hug that lingered way too long, his hand sliding down her back. I clenched my jaw so hard I thought my teeth might crack. It wasn't just a hug, it was a claim. I slipped out of the truck, crouching low as I edged closer, using the shadows for cover. The cold seeped through my boots, but I barely felt it. My eyes were glued to the massive window where they stood, framed like actors in some twisted play. Vance said something, his head thrown back in a laugh, and Margot grinned, brushing her hair behind her ear, the way she used to do with me. Then he leaned in, his voice carrying just enough for me to catch fragments. "Ezra's project, perfect timing." My name on his lips hit me like a slap. What the hell did that mean? I inched closer, the frost-crusted grass crunching under my weight. My heart pounded so loud I was sure they'd hear it. Through the glass, I saw Vance pour her a drink, his hand brushing hers as he passed it over. She took it, sipping like this was routine, like this was home. Then he said it louder, clear as day. "Once his work's done, we're set. He won't see it coming." Margot nodded, her expression cool and calculated, not a flicker of guilt. It wasn't just cheating. This was a scheme, my name tangled up in it like a fly in a web. The world tilted. I braced myself against a tree, the rough bark biting into my palm. My project, the one I'd been killing myself over for months, the one Vance kept praising me for, it was part of this? Was I some kind of pawn they were playing, some idiot they'd laugh about later? The betrayal wasn't just a knife in my back. It was a whole damn arsenal. I wanted to storm in there, kick the door down and demand answers, but my legs wouldn't move. I was rooted, a witness to my own destruction. Their silhouettes shifted as they moved deeper into the cabin, out of sight. I couldn't follow. not without losing what little control I had left. My breath came in ragged bursts, clouding in front of me like smoke signals no one would see. I stumbled back to the truck, the night closing in tight. The drive home was a blur, my mind racing faster than the engine. Margot with Vance. Vance using me. The pieces didn't fully fit yet, but the picture was ugly enough to make my skin crawl. Back in our house, my house now, I guess I collapsed into a chair, the silence heavier than ever. Her phone still sat on the counter, mocking me with its secrets. I didn't touch it this time. I didn't need to. I'd seen the truth with my own eyes, and it was worse than I'd imagined. This wasn't just a fling. It was a calculated move, and I was the collateral damage. My hands curled into fists, nails digging into my palms. I could still hear Vance's laugh, see Margot's cold nod. Whatever they were planning, it wasn't over yet. And that's what scared me most, not the affair, not the lies, but the fact that I was in deeper than I realized. I had to figure this out, had to get ahead of them somehow. Because if I didn't, they'd bury me, and I'd never even see the shovel. The drive back from Vance's cabin left me hollow, like I'd left a piece of myself out there in the frost. Seeing Margot in his arms, hearing my name twisted into their scheming, it churned inside me, a restless beast I couldn't tame. I'd vowed to get ahead of this mess, but first I needed her to slip up, to show me something I could grab onto. So I waited. When the front door finally creaked open hours later, I was ready, or at least I thought I was. Margot stepped inside, shaking snow off her boots like nothing was wrong. Her cheeks were flushed, her hair slightly mussed, and that casual ease of hers made my skin crawl. She tossed her coat over a chair and flashed me a quick smile, the kind that used to melt me but now felt like a mask. "Hey, you're still up," she said, her voice light, breezy. I stayed silent, perched on the edge of the couch, my hands clasped tight to keep them from shaking. I didn't waste time circling the point. "Where were you tonight?" My tone came out flat, sharper than I'd meant, but I didn't care. Her smile faltered, just for a split second, before she tilted her head, eyes narrowing like she was sizing me up. "Out with a friend," she replied, smooth as silk, turning toward the kitchen. She grabbed a glass from the cabinet, filling it with water, her back to me like I was an afterthought. "Which friend?" I pressed, standing now, my shadow stretching across the floor. The air between us thickened, charged with something unspoken. She froze mid-sip, then set the glass down with a soft clink that echoed in the quiet. When she turned, her expression had shifted, defensive, almost daring me to keep going. "What's with the interrogation, Ezra? I don't need to report my every move to you." Her deflection lit a spark in me, but I kept my voice steady. "I'm just asking. You've been out a lot lately." I took a step closer, watching her every twitch. She crossed her arms, a wall going up brick by brick. "Yeah, because I have a life. You should try it sometime instead of sulking around here." The jab stung, but I swallowed it. This wasn't about me, it was about her lies, and I wasn't letting her dodge them. "Cut the crap, Margot," I snapped, the leash on my patience snapping clean. "I know you weren't with a friend." Her eyes widened, a flicker of something, fear maybe, crossing her face before she smothered it with a scoff. "Oh please. What, you're spying on me now? That's pathetic." She turned away again, but I grabbed her arm, not hard, just enough to make her face me. "I deserve the truth," I said, my voice low, raw. "Who were you with?" She yanked free, her glare cutting through me like a blade. "You're paranoid, Ezra. You've always been like this, overthinking everything." Then the tears came right on cue, big glistening drops spilling down her cheeks. "I can't believe you don't trust me," she choked out, her voice breaking. "After everything we've been through, you think I'd what? Cheat on you?" She buried her face in her hands, shoulders shaking, and for a moment I felt it, that old familiar guilt creeping in, whispering that I'd gone too far. But I'd seen her with Vance. I'd heard them plotting. This wasn't paranoia, it was reality, and she was spinning it like a pro. "Stop it," I said, my words clipped. "I'm not buying the waterworks this time." Her head snapped up, the tears vanishing as fast as they'd appeared. Her lips curled into something bitter, almost cruel. "Fine," she spat. "You want to play it like this? If you're so convinced I'm the bad guy, then divorce me. Go ahead. See how far you get without me." The threat landed like a brick through a window, shattering whatever calm I'd clung to. Divorce. She'd thrown it out so easily, like it was nothing, like we were nothing. I stood there, stunned, the room tilting under my feet. She didn't wait for a response, just brushed past me, her shoulder knocking mine as she stormed toward the bedroom. The door slammed shut, the sound rattling through the house, leaving me alone with the wreckage. I sank back onto the couch, my head in my hands. She'd turned it all around, made me the villain in 3 minutes flat. It was textbook Margot, twist, deflect, attack. I'd walked into this expecting answers, maybe even a confession, but she'd danced right over me, leaving me questioning my own sanity. Had I pushed too hard? Was I wrong about what I'd seen? No. I couldn't let her do this, couldn't let her rewrite the truth I'd witnessed with my own eyes. But I hadn't gotten anything solid. No admission, no slip-up, just her tears and that venomous ultimatum. My chest ached, a dull, gnawing pain that wouldn't quit. I'd wanted to shake her, to make her see she couldn't play me like this, but instead I'd frozen. She'd won this round and she knew it. The bedroom door stayed shut, a silent barricade between us, and I was left staring at it, lost in the wreckage of my own making. Still, a small stubborn part of me refused to buckle. She could cry and scream all she wanted, but I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. I'd seen too much, heard too much to let this slide. If she wouldn't give me the truth, I'd find it another way, because something told me this wasn't just about her and Vance anymore. It was bigger, and I was running out of time to figure out how deep the hole went. After Margot's door slam and that brutal showdown, I was a mess. A tangled knot of anger and doubt, unraveling by the second. Her tears, her venom, the way she'd flipped the script, it all gnawed at me, but that stubborn spark inside refused to flicker out. I couldn't keep swinging blind. I needed someone to help me see through the fog. That's when Lila came to mind. My best friend since college, she'd always had a knack for cutting through bullshit with a single look. If anyone could ground me, it was her. I met her the next day at a diner on the edge of Asheville. A weathered little spot with peeling paint and the smell of burnt coffee hanging thick. She slid into the booth across from me, her dark hair pulled back, eyes sharp as ever. I didn't waste breath on small talk, just spilled it all. The late nights, the messages from Vance, the cabin, Margot's Oscar-worthy performance. Lila listened, her face unreadable, fingers tapping a slow rhythm on the table. When I finished, she leaned back, letting out a low whistle. Jesus, Ezra. That's a train wreck. I rubbed my face, the weight of it all pressing down like a vice. I don't even know where to start untangling it. She's got me second-guessing everything. Lila's gaze softened, but there was an edge to it, a quiet fire. I'm not shocked, you know, she said, her voice steady. Margot's always had this chill about her, like she's playing chess while the rest of us are fumbling with checkers. Her words landed heavy, stirring up memories, Margot's calculated silences, the way she'd steer conversations like a puppet master. I'd brushed it off as confidence. Now it felt sinister. Lila leaned forward, her elbows on the table. You need more than suspicion, though. You need proof, something she can't cry her way out of. I nodded, the diner's hum fading into a dull buzz as my mind raced. She was right. I'd been running on fumes and gut feelings, but that wasn't enough to fight back. I don't even know where to look. I admitted, my voice rough. She smirked, a glint in her eye. Lucky for you, I've got access. She pulled out her laptop, the screen casting a pale glow across her face. Lila worked IT at the same company, Vance's company, and she'd always been a wizard with systems. I've got a hunch, she said, fingers flying over the keys. Vance isn't exactly subtle. If he's dumb enough to mess with you like this, he's probably sloppy somewhere else. A few clicks later, she tilted the screen toward me. It was an email thread from Vance's work account, flagged in the company's archive, one he tried to delete but hadn't scrubbed clean. The subject line was vague. Project update. But the content? A gut punch. Keep Ezra on track, Vance had written to Margot. Once it's done, he's out. Need him stable till then. My mouth went dry. There it was, in black and white, their plan to string me along, use my work, then toss me aside. Margot's reply was short, cold. He's fine. Won't suspect a thing. I stared at the words, my chest tightening like a coiled spring. This wasn't just betrayal, it was a damn blueprint. Lila shut the laptop, her expression grim. They're playing you, Ezra. Hard. Vance wants your project to prop him up. Then he'll cut you loose, probably pin something on you to save face. I clenched my fists under the table, the cheap vinyl creaking beneath me. My project, the late nights, the stress, the pride I'd taken in it, was just a stepping stone for them. And Margot? She wasn't just cheating. She was complicit, holding me steady while they sharpened the axe. The diner's clatter snapped me back, plates clinking, a waitress barking an order. I looked at Lila, her steady presence anchoring me. "How did you even find this?" I asked, still reeling. She shrugged, a half-smile tugging at her lips. "People like Vance think they're untouchable. They don't cover their tracks as well as they should." She paused, then locked eyes with me. "You've got to get out of this, Ezra. Not just the marriage, the whole damn game." Her words hit like a lifeline thrown into churning water. Out. Yeah, I wanted out of the lies, the manipulation, the suffocating trap I'd stumbled into. But how? I couldn't just walk away. They'd already laid the groundwork to ruin me. My job, my reputation, it was all on the line, and they held the strings. "I don't even know where to start," I muttered, the exhaustion seeping through. Lila reached across, her hand gripping mine with a fierceness that startled me. "You start by fighting back," she said, her voice low, resolute. "We've got this email. That's a crack in their armor. We can find more, build something they can't dodge." Her confidence sparked something in me, a flicker of hope amid the chaos. She was in my corner, and for the first time in days I didn't feel like I was drowning alone. But as we sat there, the diner's fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, a shadow crept into my mind. If Vance and Margot were this bold, emailing about me like I was a disposable tool, what else were they hiding? This wasn't just about an affair or a job. It was a chessboard, and I'd only seen one move. What was their endgame? Lila's words stuck with me, a lifeline I clung to as I stepped back into the fray. That email she dug up wasn't just a smoking gun, it was a map, and I needed to trace every line to see where their scheme led. If Vance and Margot were bold enough to plot over company servers, they weren't sweating the small stuff. I had to play it smart, act like I was still in the dark, and let them dig their own graves. So I pulled myself together and walked into work like nothing had changed. Even as the ground shifted beneath me, the office hummed with its usual chaos, phones ringing, keyboards clacking, the faint whiff of stale coffee lingering in the air. Vance's corner office loomed at the far end, glass walls giving him a king's view of his little empire. I kept my head down, shuffling papers at my desk, but every nerve was dialed to 11. He strolled over mid-morning, his usual swagger dialed up, and clapped a hand on my shoulder. "Ezra, my man," he said, voice dripping with fake warmth. "This project's your golden ticket. Keep it tight and we're all set." His grin was all teeth, a predator sizing up its meal. I forced a nod, my jaw locked so tight it ached. "Doing my best," I muttered, eyes flicking to my screen. He lingered a beat too long, then sauntered off, leaving a trail of cologne that made my stomach turn. Golden ticket, my ass, he was setting me up to crash and burn. Lila's warning echoed in my skull. They'd use my work, then cut me loose. I had to know more, had to hear it straight from the source. So when lunchtime rolled around and the floor emptied out, I seized my chance. Vance's office door was cracked open, his voice drifting out as he barked into his phone. I slipped into the supply closet nearby, the narrow space reeking of toner and dust, and pressed myself against the wall. The partition was thin, his words slicing through like a blade. "Yeah, Margot, it's locked in," he said, his tone clipped, businesslike. "Ezra's on autopilot, project's nearly done. We pinned the screw up on him and I'm clean. You're free." A pause, then a low chuckle. "He's too busy playing house to notice." My blood turned to ice, then boiled over in the same breath. Autopilot. Screw up. Free. Each word was a brick, stacking up a wall of betrayal I couldn't unsee. They weren't just planning to ditch me, they were rigging the game so I'd take the fall. My project, the one I'd poured my soul into, was their scapegoat. I gripped the shelf beside me, the metal biting into my palm, anchoring me as rage surged like a wildfire. Margot's voice crackled through the speaker, faint but unmistakable. "Good. I'm done pretending." The call ended with a sharp click, leaving the silence to roar in my ears. I slid down the wall, crouching in the dimness, my breath shallow. Done pretending. She wasn't just complicit, she was all in, ready to shed me like a snake sheds skin. The pieces snapped together with brutal clarity. Vance wanted a clean slate, Margot wanted out, and I was the sacrificial lamb. My fists trembled, The urge to barge in and smash his smug face nearly overwhelming. But I couldn't, not yet. Charging in blind would only tip them off, and I'd lose what little edge I had. I eased out of the closet, the office still quiet, and sank back into my chair. My screen glowed with spreadsheets and timelines, my work, my trap. Every cell and number mocked me now, a countdown to my own ruin. Vance's laugh drifted from his office, casual and carefree, while I sat there, a coiled wire ready to snap. They thought I was clueless, a puppet dancing to their tune. Fine. Let them think that. The longer they underestimated me, the more room I had to maneuver. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, but my mind was elsewhere, spinning through what I'd heard. Pin the screw up on me, how? A botched deliverable? A fake mistake? I'd been meticulous, triple-checking every detail. But Vance controlled the narrative. He could twist anything, and with Margot backing him, I'd be sunk. The stakes weren't just my job anymore, they were my whole damn life. If they pulled this off, I'd be left with nothing. No career, no marriage, no ground to stand on. I glanced at Vance through the glass, his feet propped on his desk, phone in hand. He didn't see me watching, didn't feel the shift in the air. Good. I'd play along, keep my head down, but this wasn't over, not by a long shot. They'd handed me their plan on a silver platter, and I wasn't about to let it slip through my fingers. The wildfire in me wasn't dying out, it was growing, and I'd make damn sure it burned them instead. But as I sat there, a cold thread of dread wove through the heat. If they were this far along, how close were they to pulling the trigger? That question, how close were they to pulling the trigger, clung to me like a splinter I couldn't dig out. Vance's smug laugh, Margot's cold, done pretending. The blueprint of my downfall, it fueled a fire I couldn't smother. I wasn't going down without a fight, not after they'd laid their cards bare. Playing dumb had given me a window. Now it was time to shove something through it and rattle their cage. With Lila in my corner I had a shot, and I wasn't wasting it. I started small, methodical, gathering ammunition while they thought I was still their clueless pawn. Back at home, I combed through every scrap I could find. Screenshots of those flirty texts from V, a grainy photo I'd snapped of Margot's car outside Vance's cabin, the email Lila had pulled. Each piece was a brick in my arsenal, rough but solid. I stashed them on a thumb drive, the weight of it in my pocket a quiet promise. Lila hooked me up with a contact, a lawyer in Asheville who owed her a favor. He's discreet, she'd said, her voice firm. Start building your case. The real move, though, was baiting them. I needed them off balance, scrambling enough to slip up and give me more to work with. So I planted a seed. In our bedroom, where Margot's guard was lowest, I left a notepad on my side of the bed, scribbled with a single line. Meeting lawyer Tuesday. It was a lie, no appointment existed, but it was bold enough to spook her. I tucked it half under a book, casual but visible, then waited, my pulse a steady drumbeat in my ears. She took the bait faster than I'd expected. I'd stepped out to grab takeout, keeping up the act of normalcy when I got a text from Lila. Heads up. She's on the move. I'd asked her to keep an eye on the house, just in case. I raced back, pulling into the driveway just as Margot emerged from the bedroom, her face tight, eyes darting. She didn't see me at first, too busy clutching her phone, fingers flying across the screen. I stayed quiet, leaning against the wall, watching her unravel. Vance, he knows, she hissed into the phone, her voice low but frantic. I found a note, lawyer Tuesday. What the hell do we do? Her pacing kicked up, shoes scuffing the hardwood, each step a crack in her composure. I held my breath, the takeout bag crinkling in my grip. Vance's reply was muffled, but I caught the edge of it. Calm down, adjust the timeline. She stopped, nodding sharply, then muttered, Fine. Sooner then. The call ended and she spun around right into my stare. Her gasp was sharp, a jolt that rippled through her. Ezra, you scared me, she said, forcing a laugh that didn't reach her eyes. She shoved the phone into her pocket, smoothing her hair like she could smooth away the panic. When did you get back? I set the bag down slow, deliberate, letting the silence stretch. Just now, I said, my tone even unreadable. Everything okay? Her smile was brittle, a cracked veneer. Yeah, just work stuff. You know how it is. I didn't push, not yet. She'd seen the note, and it had lit a fuse. That was enough for now. I nodded, brushing past her to the kitchen, feeling her eyes bore into my back. The air buzzed with unspoken tension. a live wire between us. She didn't follow, retreating instead to the bedroom, the door clicking shut like a shield snapping into place. I exhaled, leaning against the counter, the takeout forgotten. Her reaction wasn't just guilt, it was fear. They were rattled, and that meant I'd struck a nerve. Later, alone in the living room, I replayed it all. Sooner then. The words looped, a warning bell I couldn't ignore. Whatever they'd planned, my fall, their escape, it was speeding up. The lawyer note had pushed them into overdrive, and I could almost hear the gears grinding. Good. Let them sweat. Let them stumble. I'd bought myself a sliver of chaos to exploit, and I wasn't about to let it slip. Lila called as I sat there, her voice cutting through the stillness. She tore through that room like a tornado, she said, a grin in her tone. You've got her spooked, Ezra. What's next? I glanced at the thumb drive on the table, its tiny shape a loaded gun. More pressure, I said, my resolve hardening. They're moving fast now, I need to move faster. She hummed in agreement, then hung up, leaving me with the hum of the house and my racing thoughts. I leaned back, the couch creaking under me, a faint smile tugging at my lips. For the first time in days, I felt a flicker of control, like I'd snatched the reins from their hands, if only for a moment. Margot's panic, Vance's scrambled response, it was a crack in their wall, and I'd wedge myself in until it split wide open. In the dark, with the mountains looming beyond the windows, I let that thought settle. They'd underestimated me, and I'd make them pay for it. But as the quiet stretched, a chill crept in. If they were adjusting the timeline, how much time did I really have left? The question of time gnawed at me, a relentless tick in the back of my mind after Margot's frantic call to Vance. I'd rattled them with that fake lawyer note, and their scramble was my opening, but it also meant the clock was winding down fast. I needed more leverage, something to widen the crack I'd made. That's when the doorbell chimed, sharp and unexpected, cutting through the tension like a blade. I wasn't expecting anyone, and with Margot holed up in the bedroom, I braced myself for whatever was about to walk in. It was Talia, Margot's older sister, standing on the porch with a knit scarf bundled around her neck and a wary look in her eyes. She brushed snow off her boots, the flakes melting into dark spots on the mat. "Hey, Ezra," she said, her voice soft but edged with something I couldn't place. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside, the chill from outside seeping into the house as she entered. Talia had always been the quiet one in their family, the observer who saw more than she let on. Seeing her now felt like a wild card I hadn't planned for. She settled on the couch, hands clasped tight, her gaze flickering around the room before landing on me. "I heard Margot on the phone last night," she started, her words deliberate, like she was testing the waters. She sounded off, panicked. "Mentioned you and some lawyer." My gut twisted, but I kept my face neutral, leaning against the wall with my arms crossed. "Yeah? She say anything else?" Talia sighed, a long weary sound that carried years of weight. "Enough to make me worry. I know my sister, Ezra. She's not good, not the way you think." Her admission hung there, heavy and raw. I'd never been close to Talia, but she'd always struck me as fair, someone who didn't play games. Now she was peeling back a layer I hadn't expected. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice low, coaxing her to keep going. She rubbed her hands together, the friction a nervous hum. "Margot's always been strategic. Growing up, she'd twist things, little lies, big fights to get what she wanted. Mom and Dad never saw it, but I did. She'd cry her way out of trouble, leave me holding the bag. This? With you. It's her all over again." The words landed like stones, each one sinking deeper. Strategic. That fit the Margot I'd glimpsed lately, the one plotting with Vance, spinning tears into weapons. Talia's eyes met mine, shadowed with regret. "I should have warned you," she said, almost a whisper. "But I thought she'd changed. I was wrong." My chest tightened, a mix of validation and dread swirling inside. Here was someone who'd seen Margot's mask slip long before I had, and she was handing me a thread to pull. I seized it. "She's with Vance," I said, cutting to the chase. "My boss. They're setting me up, work, marriage, all of it." Talia's face didn't flinch, but her shoulders sagged, like she'd been bracing for something ugly and I'd just confirmed it. "I figured it was something like that," she murmured. "She's been distant, secretive. I didn't want to believe it." She paused, then looked at me hard. "You've got proof." I nodded, tapping the thumb drive in my pocket. Enough to start. But I need more, something airtight. Her lips pressed into a thin line, conflict flickering across her face. I could help, she said slowly. I've seen her text sometimes, overheard things. But, she trailed off, eyes dropping to her hands. But what? I pushed, stepping closer. She exhaled, sharp and shaky. She's still my sister, Ezra. I won't testify against her. I'll tell you what I know, but don't ask me to stand up in court. Family's family. The refusal stung. A door half opened then slammed shut. I'd hoped for an ally, someone to back me up when the hammer fell. But Talia was drawing a line I couldn't cross. You're okay letting her ruin me? I asked, my voice rougher than I meant. She flinched, but her jaw set firm. I'm not okay with any of this. I just can't be the one to pull the trigger. You don't get it, I've spent my life cleaning up her messes. I'm done fighting her battles. I wanted to argue, to shake her until she saw how much I needed her. But the exhaustion in her eyes stopped me cold. She wasn't my enemy, just another casualty of Margot's games. Fine, I said, the word bitter on my tongue. Tell me what you know then. She nodded, reluctant but resolute, and started talking bits and pieces of Margot's past, patterns of manipulation, a call she'd overheard about tying up loose ends. It wasn't a smoking gun, but it was kindling, and I'd make it burn. Talia left soon after, her scarf trailing behind her like a lifeline she couldn't quite grab. I stood alone in the quiet, the house creaking around me, her words spinning in my head. She'd given me a glimpse, a shaky foothold but no safety net. This fight was still mine to wage, and her refusal to step up left me exposed. I paced the room, the thumb drive a hot coal in my pocket, my mind racing through next moves. Margot was accelerating, Vance was closing in, and I was still scrambling for solid ground. Then I heard it, a faint shuffle from the bedroom. The door was still shut, but the sound was unmistakable. Margot had been listening. That faint shuffle from the bedroom hit me like a tripwire snapping taut. Margot had been listening, every word with Talia. Every thread of her past I'd pulled loose, she'd heard. The realization sank in, cold and heavy, but I didn't have time to dwell. She knew I was onto her, and that changed everything. I'd been dancing around the edges of this war, but now the battlefield was wide open. I needed to hit hard, and Vance's office was my next strike zone. No more waiting, no more games. I drove to work with my nerves buzzing, the thumb drive a live grenade in my jacket. The mountains loomed gray and silent beyond the windshield, their stillness a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside me. I'd spent too long gathering scraps. It was time to shove the truth in their faces and watch them squirm. The office was a hive when I arrived, people darting between cubicles, printers whining, but I cut through it, zeroed in on Vance's glass-walled kingdom. He was there, lounging behind his desk, oblivious to the reckoning walking his way. I didn't knock. The door swung open with a thud, and I stepped in, tossing the stack of photos, Margot's car, their embrace at the cabin, onto his desk. They fanned out, a messy collage of betrayal. I know everything, I said, my voice a low growl, steady despite the fury clawing up my throat. Vance's eyes flicked to the pictures, then back to me, his smirk faltering for a heartbeat before he leaned back, crossing his arms. What's this supposed to be, Ezra? Some sad little detective act. His nonchalance was a match to dry grass. I planted my hands on the desk, leaning in close enough to smell his overpriced aftershave. Don't play dumb. You and Margot screwing me over, screwing each other. The project, the setup, I've got it all. His smirk returned, sharper now, a glint of teeth behind it. You've got nothing, he said, voice smooth as oil. A few blurry shots? That's your big move? You're out of your depth, kid. Before I could fire back, the door creaked behind me. I turned, and there she was, Margot, stepping in like she'd been summoned by the devil himself. Her coat was still dusted with snow, her face a mask of cool indifference, but her eyes betrayed her, darting to the photos with a flash of something raw. What's going on? She asked, her tone clipped, rehearsed. Vance chuckled, leaning forward now, hands steepled. Your husband's having a meltdown, babe. Thinks he's caught us at something. Babe. The word was a slap, and she didn't flinch, just stood there, aligning herself with him in front of me. Ezra, this is ridiculous, she said, crossing her arms to mirror Vance. You're making a fool of yourself. Her voice was ice, cutting through the last frayed threads holding me together. I straightened, turning to face her fully, the room shrinking around us. Ridiculous? I heard you plotting with him. I saw you at his place. You're done lying to me. She didn't blink, didn't waver, just tilted her head, a faint pity in her gaze. You're paranoid, she said, each syllable deliberate. I chose Vance because he's not a mess like you. Deal with it. The confession landed like a sledgehammer, blunt and final, cracking open the last illusion I'd clung to. Vance laughed, a short barking sound that grated against my skull. Told you, Ezra. You can't win this. Walk away before you embarrass yourself more. I stared at them, Vance's smug triumph, Margot's cold detachment, and felt something snap, a dam bursting inside me. My fist twitched, itching to crash into his jaw, to wipe that grin off his face, but I locked it down. Barely. The air pulsed with my restraint, thick and suffocating. You're wrong, I said, my voice a quiet blade. This isn't over. I turned, snatching the photos as I went, and stormed out, their laughter chasing me down the hall. The cold hit me like a wall as I stumbled outside, my breath ragged, the snow stinging my face. I leaned against my truck, the metal frigid under my palms, and let the pain wash through me, sharp, jagged, real. She'd chosen him. Not just an affair, not just a scheme, she'd picked Vance over me, out loud, without hesitation. It wasn't just my marriage dying. It was every piece of who I'd been, crumbling into the dirt. But beneath the ache, a steel thread tightened. They thought they'd won, thought I'd slink off with my tail between my legs. They didn't know me, not the me they'd forged in this fire. I climbed into the truck, the engine rumbling to life, and gripped the wheel until my knuckles whitened. This wasn't the end, it was the spark. They'd pushed me too far, and I'd make sure they felt the blowback. As I pulled away, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it, too raw to care, until it buzzed again, insistent. What now? That buzzing phone yanked me out of the haze as I peeled away from Vance's office, the sting of Margot's words still fresh, her choice echoing like a gunshot in my skull. I'd stormed out with their laughter ringing in my ears, but I wasn't broken, not yet. The call could have been anything, but something told me to let it wait. I needed to finish what I'd started, to turn their arrogance into my weapon. By the time I pulled into a gas station lot, the snow falling in thick sheets, I'd made up my mind. This was my move, and I'd play it to the end. I fished the thumb drive from my pocket, its edges worn from restless handling, and plugged it into my laptop. Every file I'd collected, texts, photos, that damning email from Vance, glowed on the screen, a digital dagger I'd been sharpening for days. I drafted an email to the company's board. Attaching it all, my fingers steady despite the tremor in my chest. The message was short, brutal. Vance and Margot conspired to sabotage my project and frame me. Here's the proof. Do what's right. I hit send, the soft click of the key, a guillotine dropping, and leaned back, the weight lifting just enough to breathe. The fallout came fast, faster than I'd dared hope. By the next morning, whispers slithered through the office like vines. Vance was gone, escorted out by security within 48 hours, his office stripped bare, his name erased from the directory. I heard it secondhand, coworkers muttering about misconduct and investigations, but I didn't need the details. The board had acted, and that was enough. I kept my head down, clocking in like nothing had changed, but inside a quiet thrill simmered. He'd underestimated me, and it had cost him everything. Margot's response was slower, more desperate. She called that evening, her name flashing on my screen like a warning flare. I let it ring twice before picking up, my grip on the phone tight. Ready? Ezra, she started, her voice shaky, a crack in the ice she'd worn so well. You didn't have to do this. Vance is ruined, his career, his life. Why? I stayed silent, letting her words hang, her panic seeping through the line. She'd expected me to fold, to slink away after her big scene with Vance. She didn't know me anymore. Why? I finally said, my tone flat, unyielding. You chose him, Margot. You set me up to crash and burn. This is what happens when you play dirty. She choked out a sob, the sound raw, unscripted, not the rehearsed tears I'd seen before. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she said, her voice breaking. You were everything to me, Ezra. Please, we can fix this. The plea clawed at me, tugging at old wounds, but I shut it down cold. No, I cut in. You made your bed. Lie in it. I hung up, the silence crashing in like a wave, and for the first time it felt clean. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the counter where we'd once cooked together, laughed together. That life was ash now, scattered by her hands and Vance's greed. But ending the call, cutting that last thread, left me lighter, like shedding a skin I'd outgrown. I wasn't the Ezra she'd manipulated, the one who'd trusted blindly. I'd fought back, and I'd won this round without raising a fist. The victory wasn't loud, no cheers, no fanfare, but it was mine, carved out of their wreckage. The next step came naturally. I pulled the divorce papers I printed weeks ago from a drawer, the ink stark against the page. My pen hovered, then scratched across the lines, name, date, signature, a quiet ritual of release. I folded them into an envelope, sealed it, and drove to the post office, the snow crunching under my tires. The clerk took it without a word, the package disappearing into the slot, and I walked out unburdened. It was done. She'd get them soon, and that chapter would close for good. Back home I sank into a chair, the house still around me, the mountains a dark silhouette beyond the glass. The fight had drained me, stripped me raw, but it had forged something new, something harder, sharper. I'd taken back my life, piece by jagged piece, and no one could snatch it away again. The phone sat silent on the table, Margot's pleas a fading echo. I'd survived their game, turned their own moves against them, and come out standing. But as I sat there, savoring the calm, a flicker of unease sparked. The board had moved fast on Vance, too fast. What else did they know? That flicker of unease about the board's swift move on Vance lingered. A loose thread I couldn't quite snip. I'd sent the divorce papers, severed the last tie to Margot, and watched Vance's empire crumble, all in a matter of days. It should have felt final, a clean break, but something nagged at me. A whisper that the game wasn't fully played out. I pushed it aside for the moment, craving a pause to breathe, to reclaim what was left of me. That's when Lila showed up, a bottle of red wine in hand, ready to toast the ashes of my old life. She kicked off her boots at the door, the snow melting into puddles on the floor, and grinned as she held up the bottle. "To freedom," she said, her voice warm, a lifeline in the quiet. I grabbed 2 glasses from the cabinet, the clink of them settling on the table, a small, grounding sound. We sat by the window, the mountains outside draped in white, their jagged peaks softened by the falling flakes. Lila poured, the wine swirling dark and rich, and raised her glass. "You did it, Ezra. You walked through hell and came out the other side." I clinked my glass against hers, the faint ring of it echoing in the stillness. "Barely," I said, taking a sip, the warmth spreading down my throat. She tilted her head, studying me with that sharp gaze of hers. "Don't sell yourself short. You took them down, Vance, Margot, the whole damn mess. That's not nothing." Her words settled over me, a balm on the raw edges I'd been carrying. She was right, I'd fought, clawed my way out, and here I was still standing. The snow thickened outside, blanketing Asheville in a hush that felt like a fresh start. I leaned back, the chair creaking under me, and let my mind drift over the wreckage. The late nights chasing Margot's lies, the sting of Vance's smugness, the gut punch of her choosing him, it all flashed through me, vivid but distant, like a storm that had finally passed. Each memory was a scar, but they didn't own me anymore. I'd drawn a line, built a wall they couldn't breach, and that was power I hadn't known I had. Lila sipped her wine, her presence steady, uncomplicated. "What's next?" she asked, her tone light but curious. I shrugged, tracing the rim of my glass with a finger. "Rebuild, I guess. Find something that's mine, not tied to them." She nodded, a quiet approval in her eyes, and we sat there, the silence comfortable, the weight of the past lifting with each flake that fell. For the first time in months, I felt unmoored but not lost, like a ship cutting free from a rotting dock. The wine dulled the edges, softening the ache that had lived in my bones too long. I thought of Margot's desperate call, Vance's empty office, Talia's half-helpful truths. They were shadows now, fading into the background. I protected myself, carved out this space, and no one could take it back. "I deserve this," I murmured, more to myself than to Lila, the words slipping out like a vow. She caught them anyway, smirking as she topped off my glass. "Damn right you do." The night stretched on, the snow piling high, sealing us in this moment of calm. I let it sink in, the freedom, the quiet, the strength I'd forged through the chaos. Margot and Vance had tried to bury me, but I'd risen instead, sharper for it. The house, once a battlefield, felt like mine again. Its walls holding me up instead of closing in. I'd set boundaries, guarded them with everything I had, and that was enough, more than enough. But as the fire crackled low and Lila stretched out on the couch, that nagging thread tugged again. The board's speed, their silence after Vance's exit, it didn't add up. I'd assumed they'd acted on my email alone, but what if there was more? What if they'd known something I didn't, something bigger than my little war? I brushed it off, blaming the wine, the exhaustion, but it stuck, a faint itch I couldn't scratch. Lila yawned, setting her glass down. "You okay?" she asked, catching the shift in my face. I forced a smile, nodding. "Yeah, just tired." She didn't push, just settled back, the room growing still. I stared out at the snow, the mountains a dark promise beyond, and took another sip, letting the warmth chase the doubt away. This was my win, my peace, I'd earned it. Whatever else was out there could wait. Until the phone rang, sharp and sudden, slicing through the quiet like a blade.